So, hey there, listener. This is Do You Want to Make a Podcast?
Yes, that is the name of the show. We just have a couple bullet points that we need to hit before we start. 1, there's a fireplace. It's fake. I've ruined everything. Wait, should we start over?
Take 2. Hello, listener. You are listening to, because you're a listener. Take 3. This is...
Wait, we should establish, what we want to talk about. What are the bullet points we need to hit here?
I got it. Okay, so we tell them that the show is called Do You Want to Make a Podcast? It is a fireside chat between two best friends who are on the hunt to create the perfect podcast. They have a lot of ideas, and they can't decide what they want to talk about.
Okay.
That's pretty much it.
That's it.
That's the synopsis. Then we'll plug the social media.
Do we want to do social media?
Yeah. So we'll tell them to follow us at Do You Want to Pod, all spelled out. That's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. You can also email us at doyouwanttomakeapodcast@gmail.com.
That's it.
That works for me.
Wait, I think we just did it.
We did it. That was my plan all along.
Oh, okay. Bye.
Bye.
Except hello, because now the show's starting.
Yes, it is. And here we are. Friends, we are our good friend Jim Bloss is not with us today, but we do have Mason Alexander Park joining us for the first time on the show. I have missed you, my friend.
I have missed you too. It is like you said, it's been way too long.
Yes, you've been up to all sorts of wonderful things. But before we get started, we have a little ritual on the show where we make sure that everyone's on the same page. I ask, Mason, do you want to make a podcast?
I want to make a podcast, yeah. I'm into it.
Okay, good. Because if you weren't, we would just stop.
That would be the end of it.
Yeah, that would be that. The shortest episode ever. So what we used to do in the before time is we would come up with what kind of podcast do we want to make? And, the world was our oyster and we had all these ideas. And now I'm just like, oh, it's so good to see my friend. That's all that matters. That's the perfect podcast. So that's what we're here for today is just connection, man. I know that structure is usually helpful in these things, but I just want to hear how you're doing, what you're up to. What do you want to talk about today?
I'm doing all right. It was, for everyone, this has been very up and down, since the beginning. The year started off really strong. I was in the midst of doing a revival of I Am My Own Wife, which I don't know if you'd ever seen or read the play, but it's a one-person show that basically it turned Jefferson Mays into a star. It was the reason why Jefferson, won a Tony and ended up becoming a bit of a household theater name.
Sure,
and a beautiful play where an actor portrays 42 different people. And it's based on real events about a trans woman in Germany named Charlotte von Mahlsdorf, who lived through the Nazis and lived through the Stasi and ran a secret club in her basement and a museum. And she was a national treasure, is a very hotly debated person. And the play is pretty remarkable, but we just updated, some of the writing with Doug, who wrote it, and to reflect the way that we talk about trans people nowadays, as opposed to, in the 90s when it was written and they were throwing around words that are not as appropriate anymore. It was an amazing experience and such a great kickoff to the year. And then this kind of came in right at the tail end of our first, production of it, which was at the Long Wharf Theater in Connecticut. And I was sort of oh my God, I wonder if this is going to have a ripple effect like throughout the rest of the year and sort of cancel anything that I had in the works.
Yeah.
So as an artist, it was kind of like devastating in the beginning because it's hard enough as it is for us to like have any sense of security. And I finally, for the first time in a long time, had like a year mapped out where I was like, oh, okay. And I get these 2 months off and then I go and do this. And that's so rare for me. I usually like, I know, a couple weeks before I start the thing. And I'm like, oh my God, bread. Like I can feed my family and my goldfish.
Your goldfish?
I wish I had a goldfish. I couldn't afford one. And so I was like just a little devastated by the thought of what it would do creatively to people that were not even nearly in as good of a position as I was. I was very fortunate to have done anything, before this happened. So I've been grappling with that a lot, and then things just like completely picked up and got a lot better as the year went on, just in terms of like remote work, in terms of doing things like this, or like voice work and that sort of thing. Like I don't know if I'm allowed to talk about it. I mean, I won't talk about it just in case. I'm in a show that's I do voiceover on a TV series that is supposed to come out next year.
Wonderful.
And so, I mean, like, that's the only reason why I have this equipment right now. So it's like, I need these things for remote auditions and recording sessions. Yeah.
Oh, well, dude, I'm so glad that things are looking better on your end. And let us know on the TV when you can talk about it. We'll be sure to, put it out there for all the world to see.
I will let you know, keep you in the loop. There are 2 things that are going on that, I'm not at liberty to talk about yet, but they're both TV projects that I'm very looking forward to doing.
That's good, man.
I'm excited.
Leave them wanting more. They got to tune in. Everyone needs to follow Mason on Instagram to hear more about this.
Yes, please do. You'll see a lot of stuff you don't want to see. Or you do. Who knows?
Your feed has been very wonderful for me because like now my world is broken open even further.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's actually like so fundamental for all kinds of people because it sort of like shapes your understanding of things that are greater than you, or also your understanding of yourself. Like if people hadn't done that, if I didn't have access to certain information growing up, like there are so many things I wouldn't know about myself that like thinking back, remember specific shows or remember specific pieces of art or artists and things that like were kind of monumental in my development as a person. So it is kind of interesting, just the thought that like singularly, I do feel like a creation, a byproduct of like all of these things that I've been given access to. So I like to be that for other people because I know like how hard it was growing up, when I was in high school and not really knowing anyone that was like me at all or used, felt similarly or used the same vernacular. And so it took me a long time to like create the language to talk about myself. So if I can like give anything, through like the heinousness that is social media, like I try to just give information that might help somebody understand themselves a little bit better or people that they just fundamentally don't get to meet often, in the same space, which is why I think it's so important for people to use social media for good, for like the dissemination of information as opposed to just like, although it's also a great entertainment tool, which I love, that like it's something that I can go to that will help sometimes break up the craziness of like the news.
Oh my God. So like there's so much that you just said that I want to dive into. And like, so first, the lowest hanging fruit there is the news. So I find myself, and feel free to tell me what you think about this. It's a hard balance to strike between staying informed and overloading yourself to the point where you're just doom scrolling.
Yeah.
So I at this point will just hope that NPR gives me in their Up First podcast the 15 minutes that I need to start my day, and then I kind of let it sit. Like I'll check CNN once or twice, and then the next day I'll start it over again. But it's wonderful because I get the highlights, but at the same time I feel like I'm not diving as deep as I can. So what's your news regimen, your news hygiene regimen, Mason? I would love to hear that.
Honestly, I don't have anything nearly as specific as yours. I like that yours is ritualized. I think I might steal that from you.
Please do.
Because right now mine is chaotic. There are days where I will like avoid the internet purposefully because something has, happened. But I find that I am one of those people that like the second something I care about or, something that feels unjust is like being discussed, I then like fall into that rabbit hole of like reading everything. And it's very much so like doom scrolling. It's this weird, hole that I get sucked into where I'm just like reading awful things about like myself or about, like people that, I feel like I'm of that community and all kinds of things. And like, it's so easy to get caught up in both sides of like the narrative of the positive and the negative, depending on which side of the fence that you're on for a lot of issues. But yeah, it's been weird. It's like, especially for me, my Twitter feed has been just based on like all the people that I follow and friends and stuff. Mm-hmm. And like, it has been so clogged with J.K. Rowling, like transphobic stuff. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, I can't look away. It's like one of those car wrecks, where you're just like, I know I shouldn't be reading this stuff because these people are like not right and this hurts my soul. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, I want to know like, what do people from this part of the world or from that thought process, like what is actually going on in someone's head to make them think or say the things that they think that are so full of, hatred? Like what information are certain people fed that kind of give them this platform where they're like, oh, well, this has nothing to do with me because I'm not of this world. But I still have a very strong negative opinion about it. And I'm going to voice that on the internet. It's like the audacity is shocking sometimes. I just don't talk about things that like that I am not, if I'm going to talk about something negatively, it has to be of my experience or of my world. I just don't have the balls to like go out there and be like, oh, I'm going to now judge this person for X, Y, and Z. If it's not from directly within my experience, it doesn't feel like it is, then I have no authority in that. Unless it is like purely on paper, like Nazis are bad.
Right.
We can all say that and agree on it, hopefully, and there are obviously people who don't. But like there are fundamental things that I think like are easier to talk about. But yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. So the news has definitely been very divisive of late, and especially like the way people talk about it on social media.
The lens, I'll call that the lens that you look at the news through, the lens that you look through before posting on social media. Sounds wonderful. Is this just something that like you inherently felt out? Were you doing some reading that led to this approach? Because I'm going to steal some of that from you in turn.
Honestly, I think that it's just sort of like became, it came out of like trial and error, maybe. When you're younger, I think that people are very quick to talk about things openly that they don't necessarily understand. And it's important to be able to have the freedom to do that. Like, I think it's important to be able to ask questions and just be inquisitive in general. But as I've gotten older, I treasure my voice in a way that I don't think I did when I was a little bit younger. And most people don't, I know the importance of what, words kind of mean to people reading things and people just kind of like taking information in. So anytime I go to say something or talk about something on the internet, I try to make sure that I am at least fairly educated and in a place where I think that privilege plays a huge part in the way that people talk about systems of oppression or talk about like the wrong and the rights in the world. And so I kind of have built this like marginalization ladder in my brain, and I know where I sit on it in the ladder. So I feel fine to punch up. But, I will never, ever do anything except for uplift the voices of those beneath me on that ladder, if that makes sense. So as a non-binary, this is, this is like, I'm sure there are a million people who have said, this better, who have come up with like this system.
That ladder metaphor, if that's original, I need a PDF, I need a graphic. That's great.
I'll punch something up for you. Yeah, I think, I don't know, it's been a good visual for me, like in terms of, I know where there are caste systems in every single, in every single system and in every single generation and a community. And as like a non-binary Latinx and like indigenous person, I know where I sit. And I also know that I'm very white passing. And so that puts me higher up on the ladder. And I know that like, my experience in life or where I come from socioeconomically also puts me in a different place in the ladder. So I try to like think about things in terms of, well, where do I sit? And how does that help those beneath? And how does that, allow me to challenge those above? And so I think that's sort of in my head kind of quickly runs through almost anything that I talk about. J.K. Rowling, I can talk about her because she will always be higher on the ladder. She is a white woman who is, a billionaire at this point. Like, will always be much higher on the ladder than someone like me. So I can challenge her views when she's punching down and talking about Black trans women and talking about, the rights that certain people should have or should not have when she comes from, this complete massive mound of privilege. And I know that she feels differently. Like, I know that she feels like she's lower on the ladder than some people, which she is,
right.
Like there are white men that are higher than her.
Sure.
And that's the system that she's fighting and why she's like kind of fighting both ways. But I don't think you can fight both directions. I think you can only fight one direction, and you're supposed to help everybody else that's, behind you kind of join forces and fight those up top.
I'm not just buttering your bread. That is a wonderful visual. It's very helpful.
Thank you. I appreciate it. You can butter my bread anytime. Ciabatta.
Ciabatta! Bread of choice!
Bread of choice. Is butter good on ciabatta? I feel like I haven't experienced that to know.
I don't know. I feel like if I was going into a place that was, well, this is assuming I could walk into any place and order food, right? But if, like, it's assuming that was possible in a world where that's possible.
In a magical world.
If I go into a place and I ask for butter on ciabatta bread, I just feel like I'll get some kind of stare from someone's like, butter? You mean ghee, right? You want ghee on the ciabatta. Not butter. No.
Not butter. No. Never butter. Okay, I'm glad that we solved this then, because that would have kept me up at night.
We almost crossed the line.
That was the end of the podcast. Like almost was the last thing. You can cut this and then you can put that at the very, very tail end. It's just gonna be ghee.
Oh, it's perfect. What else is out there other than ghee? What's gonna stop the millennial police from knocking at my door? Because if I use butter, they're gonna knock at my door. They're not gonna arrest me. They're just gonna stare at me for a while until I feel bad and give them my millennial card. But I know that ghee is safe. What else is safe? Is sun butter, but that's like peanut butter.
Sun butter, sun butter. I don't think I've had sun butter.
It's tasty.
It's like okay.
Sunflower seeds.
Take your word
sunflower
for it.
Seeds made into what tastes kind of like peanut butter.
See, there is, I will say I haven't used regular, just normal margarine, butter in a while because Country Crock makes this weird plant butter that is actually phenomenal. Ooh. It tastes, to me at least, like real butter. Write that down. Go try it. It's kind of amazing. I was shocked. I like my mom, who hates fake anything. Like she is very much so, just like normal foods, you know, cannot do almond milk and or oat milk and that kind of stuff that like I'm obsessed with. And I just noticed that like we didn't have any real butter in the house. That she's just been using plant butter for a very long time. She's like, yeah, whatever. It's fine. It tastes good. Yeah, she loves it. It is the only alternative that she's obsessed with.
All the alt foods and stuff. Like I'm so curious where I'm gonna be with my opinion on this in like 20 years, because like right now I'm in it, you know, oat milk, you know, like I'm just so curious. I feel like people are still arguing about whether or not egg yolks are quote unquote good for you. Like we're still like the jury's still out, and I'm like, we have the ability to put people on the moon. Elon Musk can do it, and yet the jury's out on egg yolks, people. What is going on?
That is honestly, I've been thinking a lot about how hilarious and amazing science is recently. I've been like, there are so many things that seem so simple that we still can't agree on. I wonder if egg yolk will be like the flat earth of, 2075. Like it's pretty amazing that there are people that debate things that seem like on paper to me so very simple. And they're incredibly complex. And I know that like we just need time to figure everything out. But like at the end of the day, we will never figure everything out. Like there is new science all the time, and they're constantly like realizing that they were wrong about. It's amazing.
That is
you will
amazing.
never run out of work.
And I don't want to detract from that. I just got an image of chickens looking at us as we debate this, and they're like, "You guys are this is what you're worried about." Yes.
I don't think that detracted at all. I think that just completely sent this home. That really like knocked it out of the park. That was a beautiful visual. Thank you.
But you're right about science always disproving itself. And there was this recent interview I listened to with Carl Sagan's daughter, Sasha Sagan. And she talks about how wonderful how wonderful it is that there's scientists out there being like, this is what we know today. We may be totally wrong about that, but this is where we are now. And that their whole, I don't want to say vocation, but what they do in life is like admitting that they may be wrong and trying to prove it wrong. And if they can't prove it wrong, like, that's the best that we got.
You have to have immense humility, and charisma and intelligence to be able to do something that like, it's kind of like artists, almost like what we do. We're constantly reevaluating what it is that we do and if it's of worth or of any necessity whatsoever. And I think that like science has in a completely different wavelength, not to compare scientists to actors, but
I'm about to connect these. Finish your thought, and then I want to connect them. Please go. I really have. I didn't think this would come up, but I've been dying to talk about this on the show. So please keep going. And then
great! I'm so excited. I'm so excited. But it is amazing. There are very few vocations in which like your entire basis of what you do is like so rooted in rejection and in rediscovery and in putting, or if you're good at your job, trying to put your ego aside in order to service a better, vision of something. And that's why I got into the industry, because I love the camaraderie of it. I love this idea that like people with all of these different skill sets come together to create an experience that hopefully, makes people better and makes people feel better. Yes. And science is really interesting in a similar way. It like, both acting and science help us understand the world around us better. One's more of an emotional experience, although science can be incredibly emotional. But I think that's like, to me, if there was a connective tissue, like that would be where my brain went. But I'm very interested in what's bubbling underneath your surface. What's bubbling
in my mind right now is a bunch of unresearched theories, hopes and yearnings, and this may be totally false. So feel free.
That's the name of your memoir.
What's that?
That should be the name of your memoir.
Oh, I forgot what I said. What is it?
I forgot what you said too, and so now
we're recording it. We're good. Something.
Yeah, we can just check the tape.
So I haven't Googled this yet because I'm just lazy, but I want to somehow prove that, well, it kind of has been proven, right? That art is medicine. Art therapy exists, right?
Yeah.
I want to measure whatever science vital signs will make this quantifiable to people who are not, of the arts. So like people who like data, like I want to show them like, hey, catharsis is a thing. And when you engage and when you experience catharsis, your blood pressure goes down, this like maybe your immune system goes, like all like the stuff that we feel when we leave a theater. I want there to be numbers and like data to support that so that I can go to the healthcare companies and say, look, cover theater as medicine. I want my friends who are actors to be paid like healthcare workers. I want there to be steady money coming in. I want audience members who can afford it to be able to put a ticket to a Broadway show on their insurance, so that way they're not having to choose between paying hundreds of dollars to a ticket. Like, how cool would it be, Mason, for you to write off like going to a show like as a copay, you pay $20, right? Because you know what you're going in it for.
Yeah.
I realize there's a danger here because not everyone can afford health insurance, and we're still not in a world where health insurance is accessible for everyone. I'm just saying, like, as an option, that would be really what I'm trying to figure out a way to do. Just me, nobody, Joe, in my own little bubble, is trying to take the theater industry and move it under the healthcare industry so that there's money for it all the time. Now, I need you to check. I need you to call me out on what I'm about to say because I could be totally wrong. But I feel like a lot of, and I'm talking specifically about theater because I'm biased, right? But like, I feel like theater is largely funded as an industry by lots of aging old people who decide to bequeath large sums of money to the theater. And that's great. But I always go, well, okay, let's think down the line. If those people stop giving their money or they all die off and the millennials who are rising up and just trying to pay off their student loans don't have extra money to give to the arts, that's not a future that I'm excited for. So I'm like, okay, for better or worse, the health industry makes a butt ton of money. Let's plug into that. How can we move, regional theaters, Broadway theater, into that system? Your thoughts?
Yeah, it's actually it's really interesting too to think of the amount of like money that theater kind of gets to from donors that are healthcare specific. I am now thinking back to every regional theater I've worked at and or gone to see something and like looking through the playbill and how many of the ads are like, also mainly because the target demographic is an older generation of people who like need access to healthcare and that sort of thing. But yeah, I'm constantly stressed about the future of an industry that is entirely dependent on generational wealth because our American theater, at least, is not funded in the way that, all of this, but like even just looking at what's happening in London right now and the amount of money that's actually kind of being poured into saving the West End and trying to help theater out there. Even Netflix is pouring money into their economy right now. It's just so strange to me that like they have yet to set up some sort of a fund for like Broadway. But it's because of the way that we value American theater, and it's not seen as a necessary thing in the way that like in the culture is just completely different in London, in the way that they value the written word and they value plays especially. And so I think that we have to do massive restructuring to begin with. So like, why not think about all the various avenues in which it could work? Theater is a completely medicinal experience for many people. It is therapy. I don't know. I think that there are so many things to unpack there that it could be interesting to see like what like work and science needs to be done ahead of time to like check out the validity of that course of action, because it's kind of, it sounds nuts and it sounds awesome to me.
Thank you.
I'm so into it.
I'm glad. Good. I'm going to hook you up to my catharsis machine, and I'm going to put you in front of your favorite play. And then it's going to
just watch my vital signs.
It's going to either give a happy face. Oh, look, on the happy scale, Mason went from a 1 to a 7. Great. Okay, America. We now have funding for theater.
I am patient 0. I can't wait. I'm so excited.
Yeah. Well, I'm trying. Well, the hardest part I think would be is that the blessing and curse of art this is like my tongue-in-cheek thing I say about art is that everybody's right. In the audience, your experience is your experience. If you thought something was awful, you're right. You thought it was awful. If you thought it was the best thing ever, great. It's the best thing ever. So it's not like if we're trying to prove that art is medicine, if everyone's going to react to a play a different way, the data is going to be kind of all over the place, which means that the only way this can work is if everyone goes to see Hamilton and has their vitals measured. Because it's the only thing we've all been able to agree on in the past 4 years.
Foolproof plan.
This is really just me trying to get a free seat to see Hamilton. That's all this really is.
Like, dear God, just somebody send Joe to fucking Hamilton already, please.
Which is a bit unfair. I was blessed to have already. I saw it before when it transferred to Broadway before it won the Tony. I was able to see it, so I just want to see it again.
Oh my God, come on, OG. That's awesome. That's really cool.
It was cool, and I felt well. And this is like I left feeling like I ran a mile, like I ran several miles. And that's no small statement, because as someone who loves to exercise, I know what it feels like to have gone through to me, what is a serious workout. And Hamilton worked me out. I was like, holy shit. Like, I bet you I have endorphins running to my blood system. I felt the health benefits that I did from exercise from leaving Hamilton. And I wish I had my machine on my head, because then I could have proved it, Mason.
Yeah.
And then all our problems would have been solved.
Everything. World hunger, coronavirus, all of it would have been solved in an instant.
Forgive student loans, pump money into the arts, and make it affordable. And we're going to have a much better world.
Hey, absolutely. That is spectacular. What's interesting is I recently also have been thinking a lot about the effects that being in a show has on a person. And I don't think a lot of people, even actors, I don't think we really sit and take stock beyond the negative effects. I think everybody is aware of oh my God, I'm tired, or oh my God, my bones hurt, or X, Y, and Z. I'm breaking out, all of these things. But there are so many amazing things that I think that we take for granted or kind of forget sometimes. The body doesn't know when you're playing pretend. And I think a lot of people forget about that. The body is not, it is a genius piece of, equipment, but it does not know. The brain cannot differentiate between us playing pretend and us doing, an everyday thing. So anything that you experience as an actor, the body experiences it as if you were going through it. Our brains just trick us into thinking that we're not experiencing it because we're playing two different people, because we know that we're pretending, So we are self-aware enough to be like, oh, okay, I'm not actually, Hamilton. But the body has no fucking clue. So you're out there doing the whole play, and you did that play. So you also get the negative and the positive, emotional effects. And we build this craft around being able to sort of disassociate almost.
How can you
desensitize? But
if you really did it, if you were really doing it, if you're really doing the work, if you're really doing the art, that was real. That trauma. If you're and plays are not about people who have easy, cool, chill Zen lives, right? These are people who are struggling.
Never ever.
So if you have to put yourself through,
how boring would that be?
It would. I've written things and I'm like, they're okay, they're happy. This isn't a story. No one's gonna want to watch this.
Nope. Yeah. Next play.
So to go further with that, so the body experiences it. I'm big on trauma these days because I've been loving years of therapy. It's been great. So the body may experience some trauma, perhaps, in addition to the to the benefits, the elation, the euphoria of the connected theatrical experience. Do you think that it becomes part of the rehearsal process to like, where like, I'm just imagining like a circle of people. I don't think that's the answer, but you know, just like, is there a way to process what just happened? Like, is it the cast sits down and we acknowledge like, okay, this thing happened. We're not just going to break and go to Chipotle after rehearsing a very charged scene in something, say, from Spring Awakening, right? Like, do we start adding roles onto the creative team where it's more or less a therapist who's there just to be like, okay, I'm here if you guys need me. This is a scene we're about to do with a capital S, like something like that. Like it's a leading question. That's what you sparked in my brain.
I absolutely think that well, you know, every industry like finds new roles and new niches. And I think that we're in a world in which like we're in a really interesting part of history where like politics and the politics of like human to human interaction and understanding that everybody's going through their own individual experience is kind of allowing us to start to think about the safety of people that are beyond like an everyday norm. I don't know if anything that I just said made sense, but you know, like I think a couple years ago, everyone had this idea of what like the normal everyday person was, and you sort of based the world around that person, and that person was a generally like a decently healthy, you know, well cared for, financially white man.
I'm raising my hand.
And the world was kind of built.
And my name is Joe, so this is perfect. You know, like like me equals normal, like middle class white dude.
Yeah, like
you know, cisgender, heterosexual. Yeah. The white male experience.
Yeah, like that's the experience. And so the world's kind of built around, I feel like, that being the natural setting and the comfort of that natural setting. And now I think we're discovering that actually the diagram, you know, like everyone's all over the place, and that it's almost safer to kind of like think about all of the people that might be on all the other parts of that and sort of create a map that's like comforting to the whole group, to the collective.
Yeah.
And I think theater as a collective experience, especially full of people from all kinds of backgrounds, when you're doing it right, are like, we are in need of new jobs that allow that kind of support for folks that might have generational trauma. You know, people of color that are working on certain plays should not only have access to, you know, like to a therapist or to counseling when it's a play about slavery or a play about X, Y, and Z. They should have access to those things in just about any work setting, because those feelings and that generational trauma and all that stuff exists no matter what. It doesn't matter what play you're doing. And so I definitely now seeing like intimacy coordinators becoming a big thing. I'm really hoping that will extend itself into more job opportunities that are similar for licensed, you know, therapists and counselors to be able to have a place in a room like that. Because for me, I didn't really realize how much I needed it until this year. Doing I Am My Own Wife was a singularly very different experience than I think anything I've done in terms of like Long Wharf Theater is doing a lot of work to not only catch up with the world, but also sort of try to be a couple steps ahead of it. It's being led by, you know, an amazing artistic director of color, and they're doing everything that they possibly can think of at this moment in time to sort of like be that theater that is walking the walk. And so almost everybody on the creative team of this show about a trans woman was transgender, except for our director. You know, we had one cisgender person in that room for the most part. We had a consultant whose job, you know, as a trans person was to help facilitate those conversations between anyone who wasn't and anyone who was. She was there to support me and support kind of, you know, the needs of the group. And then all that, you know, goes away when everybody leaves. You know, the play is up and running, and so you lose all that protective, beautiful, that team, bubble almost that you have, that team in rehearsal. And I found that my way around, like, finishing, like the finality almost of that experience, was going to the talkbacks every single day. Their theater has a history of doing, like, they do a talkback after every show with someone on staff. And then they'll do like a few, here and there over the course of the run with an actor from the play. But because I was the only actor in the play, and it's like 2.5 hours of me just like talking to myself like a psychopath, and playing a million different people and like sobbing, like it was a daunting experience as an actor. I think everyone expected me to then like go to my dressing room, take off all the clothes, like, wipe my tears away and then leave, and they like the car would be waiting and it would be like time to go home. And I always had to ask if like the car could just sit for a little bit longer, or if they could take, someone else first and then come back for me, because I noticed a massive difference on days that I wasn't able to sit and listen to the audience and talk to them about what they saw and respond to questions, versus days when I just like did my job and went home. And you carry parts of it with you. And it's, I think that there is such an importance to actually like taking stock of the experience, whether it's, within a controlled group, within the actors and the company, after a show maybe, or even if it's just like a 5-minute check-in. Like I just, up until that moment, had never realized how much I rely on that, or will want to rely on that in the future. And I think that's why I've always loved talkbacks. Like my entire career, I always will go and try to be at every single one that I can. And in this case, like, interrupting every single one that I was not invited to. Because it's an amazing opportunity. Like, how often do you get to really now sit there as you and hear what other people are thinking and how that experience has shaped them, or what it's brought up for them, and you sort of be able to unpack what you just went through as well at the same time. Like, it's a very important thing that I almost want a routine now into everything that I do in some sense. But yeah, so that's a long-winded answer. But
love it. I'm so glad you had those resources at Longworth. It sounds like they were taking good care of their people. I have nothing to really add because I have not had that experience.
But when you do, you will love it. Knowing you, I know that is something that I think like a little light bulb will go off and you'll be like, wow, this is, there is something medicinal about this that needs to be implemented on a much bigger, level. I think that there is power in routine and power in taking stock of what we have all collectively gone through, and it helps you kind of move past it and move. That's why therapy is so amazing. Like, that's why all of those things are so important for mental health and for emotional health. So why not treat actors with the exact same grace and humility that you do, any person going through an experience that is heightened, or traumatic. Because like we do it every single night when you're in that show, over and over and over and over and over.
I'm sure you've had this experience, like having worked, you know how the sausage gets made. So when you're watching a film and you're watching someone cry, when like when your friends next to you are like, maybe perhaps they're not actors themselves and they're like experiencing it, and all I can think of is they don't have to do that 8 shows a week, and my friends are crying like, oh, that was so hard. I was like, it was, but they only had to do it like once. Like, it's not that hard.
They really just needed it one perfect. I do find that I get very judgmental
just watching sometimes. As the analytical scientist.
But it's really nice too to think about, like, I always then try to think about that specific actor, like what it is that they're up against, and like all the different things that they've done in their life too as a performer, because it's amazing to see how many of us, and especially like the people that we love the most as film and television actors, are theater people. Like that was where they came from, and that's why the training and all of it is just like there and looks so beautiful and effortless, because you can tell the difference between like a first time film and TV person, like going through the ropes and trying to master some hard emotional scene. And then you can think about, like someone like Helen Mirren, who, we know is like the epitome of a trained theatrical voice, like completely just killing it. And you know that she could have done it 20 takes and like it been phenomenal every single time because she knows how to do that 8 times a week and how to deliver that kind of an experience. I think I'm always like, I've always been really snooty about film and TV, and like at times, even though I've done my fair share of it and I'm going back to it, you know, but like nothing beats the feeling too, like the ego trip of completing something really hard on stage and knowing that like it is sustainable for you. The moment that I am in a show and I feel like, oh, I'm consistently like okay at this moment, or oh, I can consistently like feel this and it feels real to me, then I'm like, that to me is more impressive than me being able to do just about anything else. Like I get more excited at the emotional consistency of something, or how little I have to work to make sure that it's there, because then that means that like I've done my homework and I'm connected to the thing and I'm believing what I'm saying, or I'm paying attention to what I'm saying, which is not always true of every project that I do. You know, there are times where I'm like, I'm a dumb actor. Like, you can feel it, like, you know, when you are just an absolute ass of an actor, like doing nothing. But it's really special. It's really special when you hit your stride in a project or with a character and you're like, wow, this is kind of almost effortless, and yet it feels so real, and I'm like experiencing it anew every single time, but I know that like it's still specific and still consistent. That's all you can ever dream of as a theater actor, for me at least. I know some people are probably like, that sounds horrible. I want it to be new every night, so drastically different.
This. I can't wait to put the brain machine on you, Mason, as you're going through this. I'm like, I want to see what his brain, because what you're describing, I'm just seeing a brain that like different areas are lighting up the same overnight. And I'm like, and what's going on? And what's it look like when Mason's just asleep? Like, I just want to compare what's going on in the mind. And then, of course, you know, being the hippie, I'm like, and oh, is this what it looks like when you're on psilocybin? Is this what it looks like when someone's on acid? Like, or meditating, like, because what I think, what I'm grasping at here is that there's this, I haven't done the research, but I don't know if you know the name Michael Pollan. He got not famous. I mean, he teaches at Berkeley, so he's known that way. His main writings were on dieting, or not diet, like proper, you know, nutrition. But he recently did a book called How to Change Your Mind, where he started doing a lot of psychedelics to just, you know, dive into that.
As you do.
You know, as you do on a Tuesday. Yeah. And he talks about how there's an area of the brain called the default mode network that is turned off when you take psilocybin, when you take magic mushrooms, which is the part of the brain that is thinking about itself and the part that's thinking about its thinking. And if I think back to, you know, our college experience, like that was always my biggest struggle as an actor, is like, Joe, we see you thinking about the scene. We see you thinking about the note you're trying to sing. My default mode network is going, is this good? Is this good? I'm thinking about Joe. And I think what you're describing is you reach a point where consistently I have no training I have no scientific experience to back this up, but I think what's happening is that Mason's default mode network is just getting used to turning off, so that when you're in that scene, when you're singing that song, you're just able to flow with this energy that would just look so cool on a graph. That would look so cool. It would look wonderful.
We'll make it happen.
I think so.
You have to give me something good to work with, though, because I find that, like, I think the material also is so dependent on that experience. Because like there are times where I'll be doing something and all I can think about is like I am only self-conscious. Like that part of my brain is the only thing working, and I'm like, this is terrible. I'm terrible. This whole thing is, you know, like, what do I sound like? What's happening? And I know that the work doesn't, like, I've been in rooms with people where I know that that's my experience and they haven't been able to see that from the outside. But that's because, like, as an actor, you just learn how to, like, have two things going on at once, where you're like, there's the internal dialogue, and then there's like, my mouth is still saying things. I'm still, like, there are times where I completely forget that I'm thinking about so many other things, and I completely forget what I'm doing, but my body is still doing it somehow. It's really freaky how our brains are capable of almost like compartmentalizing and multitasking in such a distinct way. But yeah, when I'm doing the good work, what you described is like what is happening. At least what I hope is happening in my head, where I'm not thinking about anything. I'm just like going through it and feeling it and experiencing it in a very hippy dippy way. Like I think it would look so cool on graph, as opposed to like the dead space that is normally.
Oh my God. Can you imagine like you finish your show and then the next day it's like, all right, now let's look at the brain imaging. What was going on? You know,
that'd be
just
amazing.
Like it would just be fascinating.
Oh, I'm here for it. Anytime you need to
I will
like
just
elaborate.
get on building that machine with all my know-how.
Yeah.
Excellent. I don't want to take up more of your time, man. This has been wonderful.
Thank you.
My heart is so full. I hope you're feeling good. I know I am.
It's just like so great to talk about so many random things. But I could literally sit here and talk to you for hours about nothing and it would still somehow come out as something, which is like, it is a gift. That is a good gift that
thanks,
you
buddy.
have that I'm very excited to go back and listen to whatever madness comes out of this.
The medicinal madness.
Truly. Oh my God. We talked about so many random things. People are just going to be like, what the fuck?
Well, if they've stuck with the show this long, they know what they're getting into. And we thank you for that, listener. Thank you for sticking around, even if it's only just my mom. Hey, Mom.
Thank you. Oh, laughed so freaking hard over the clip that you posted of Nick Inesco with the snacks. That is truly ridiculous and maybe the perfect encapsulation of who he is as a person. So I just need you to know you did good on that little trailer. Like that was the moment. You know, if you were to capture someone's essence, that was the essence.
Awesome.
Essence of Inesco.
Excellent.
That's his new Twitter handle.
We love you, Mr. Inesco. Oi.
Oh my goodness. Well, thank you for this. Thank you for having me. I'm honored.
And kids, you can find Mason. We'll link to him and all the stuff. I said him. I messed up your pronouns. I suck. We will link to them in the show notes.
Thank you. Thank you. No, thank you very much. The pronouns are hard. I just
keep trying to catch myself when I fuck up.
That's all you can do. And I think it's hard because people want to be patient and impatient at the same time when it comes to change, like any kind of change. But something like language is so ingrained in you as a kid that it takes a really long time to adjust your thinking on something. So even though we use they, them as neutral pronouns all the time anyway, there still is like a mental adjustment to recognize that like if that is somebody's pronoun, that like every time I mention that person, that is where my brain needs to go. As opposed to like, the normal default. It's kind of so it is amazing. I'm always like, I love watching people that are adapting and like figuring it out. Like that's all you could ever ask for. I do not expect anybody to like magically, oh my God, they're amazing at everything. Because it took me so long to get good at pronouns. I like misgendered my friends and myself for the longest time, even as a non-binary
thank you
person.
for
it doesn't go away.
For being gentle with my slip up, with my flub.
Literally,
we should keep that in there, kids, because it's important to talk through this stuff.
Yeah. Absolutely. It is a great way to just learn and like, at catching yourself.
Right on.
Yeah. I love you. I appreciate you very dearly.
The love is mutual, my friend.
And it seems such a waste of time. If that's what it's all